Scenarios are more about reusing parts of the world that we've either already created in interesting new ways. I'll go over one example, which is the Battle for Goldshire. And it also gives us the ability to do some interesting new types of PvE gameplay that we've never seen before. One way to characterize that potentially would be able to kind of label them as PvE battlegrounds. So what are they? These are short instances for a few players. The number of players can vary based on what the scenario is. The scenario can be for 3 players, for example. And these are all designed for players that are playing their character in a similar way as they would when they're questing. So you don't have the typical like tank, heal, DPS type setups for these types of scenarios that you would for a dungeon. It's a staged experience, or at least in many cases it is, where you'll have different phases of the scenario that you go through and you're trying to accomplish some greater goal. And here's one example, right? So these are purely theoretical examples. This isn't an actual scenario that we're in the process of creating. But if you can imagine for a moment a scenario called the Defense of Goldshire, and let's pretend for a little bit that you and a couple buddies are in there, and your job is at first to clear out a bunch of kobolds. You got to find and return some children in the town, and then kill Goldtooth. And this would be the type of scenario that we would do as an introductory scenario. Maybe we first introduce this scenario at level 10 for players that are leveling up for the first time. But we would even design it in such a way where you could do like a level 90 version of it, so that even if you never got a chance to do it, or you just kind of wanted to go back and do it again, you'd be able to do that. And of course, with our philosophy of being able to do whatever it is you want to do to progress your character, you'd still be able to get Valor points out of doing it at level 90. So, here we are imagining, these are all fake screenshots, by the way, so. Whoa, big gold tooth. Another example that I kind of called out is the idea of being able to do PvE battlegrounds. This is the kind of thing that we've never really done before, we've never really been able to do before, and we'd like to take a stab at doing some stuff like this. So if you imagine this, imagine that this is the Battle of Grizzly Gulch, the Battle of GG. And let's, again, purely hypothetical example, let's imagine that this is a Defense of the Ancient style battleground, right? Except there are no enemy players on the other side. Because there are a lot of players out there that would love to do battleground type content, but are kind of, freaked out by fighting other players, or, makes them really nervous, or they just don't like that kind of thing. So this gives us the ability to do a lot of those similar kinds of mechanics in a PvE setting. And that also allows us to do some slightly different things that we wouldn't normally be able to do. So imagine that you and a couple buddies are in charge of going down the lanes of this PvE battleground called the Battle of Grizzly Gulch. You've got to slay enough soldiers to get your characters powered up, and then dominate the enemy defenses to destroy their 6 towers and the barracks, and then out comes the boss, and you'll have to apply the beat down to General Drake. Here's actually a map that we've been working on a little bit. This one is like an extension of a Defense of the Ancient style battleground that we're currently working on, so you can kind of imagine the scenario taking place in an environment like this. So these scenarios have a wide variety of different applications that really give us the ability to do new things that we haven't done before with dungeons, because those are very much about tank, heal, DPS, fight some mobs, tank them, heal them, beat them down, boss, etc. Another important point here is that there isn't player collision, that these are designed to be PvE. And one other way to look at these is that they could potentially replace group quests. I know that a lot of you probably experienced way back in the day when we used to do a lot more group quests out in the outdoor world, but we always had problems with, some people would be halfway into doing the group quest when you join up with the quest, and you kind of have to start over again, and all the kind of awkwardness of, LFGing inside, trade chat or whatever, or in an LFG chat for that zone of trying to find a group to do your group quest, because this gives us a more elegant way to use some of those interesting outdoor areas to do group-style questing. So that brings us to how it kind of works, and kind of a little look into that. Now, not surprisingly, this is the type of queue-and-go sort of scenario, like a dungeon finder. So you'd pop open a UI and you'd queue for it. And on the upside, no roll requirements. It kind of implies automatically very short queues. Yeah. So you might even be able to imagine being able to do something like this while you're waiting for your dungeon queue to pop, because they're intended to be pretty quick experiences. And of course, this is one of many different options to earn Valor points to progress your character. So now let's talk about another one of those new features that went by, and that's Challenge Mode Dungeons. Hopefully this will be something that excites a lot of you in the room. I don't know how many of you guys were around way back in the day when we had this thing called the 45-minute Baron Run. So that was pretty exciting, and I've always really wanted for us to be able to do that sort of thing again and really institutionalize it in a way that adds a whole new type of gameplay. Granted, there were some not fun elements to it. For example, like if it was blocking your progression to getting your tier 1.5 set back in the day, that part of it was a little bit of a downer. But that won't happen here. So what are challenge mode dungeons? Dungeons, as you know, are these experiences that you guys go through already. But wouldn't it be interesting if we had essentially time trial versions of these dungeons? And so challenge modes really are that. When you set yourself into a challenge mode and you group up with your buddies or potentially queue into a challenge mode dungeon, the purpose of doing this is going to be to complete the dungeon in a specified amount of time. And so that implies a whole different level of coordination and teamwork that you don't necessarily get when you're just sort of plodding through, either because you're new to the dungeon or you're just trying to get the loot out of it and you're just kind of taking your time to do whatever. And you'll rip through there as fast as you can in order to earn bronze, silver, or gold medals for doing it as quickly as you possibly can. The gear levels for these are normalized, which is another important distinction here. So what that means is that, for example, if you were to apply that to today's world, you would all be brought down to the same level of gear. All your gear would scale down to the same level of gear, some standard level, that you would go through this. So it isn't the kind of thing that you can just get better gear to overpower your way through. So when you're able to, talk about, So you'll be able to brag to your buddies about how you got that, 23-minute run, and you'll know that it's a fair basis comparison because everybody's gear was at the same level. And what do you get out of it, other than Valor points, of course? You also get sweet-looking gear with no stats. What might that be for? Transmogrify, perhaps. So we're going to create an entire tier of gear that has a unique and special look that you'll be able to get exclusively by doing challenge modes. So if you do the challenge modes and you rip through there and you get the gold medal in all the different dungeons, you'll be able to earn yourself an entire set of gear to show off to your friends about what a badass you are for being able to clear these dungeons as quickly as you can. So that summarizes the way challenge mode dungeons work. Really a big part of this for us is giving you the ability to have bragging rights and leaderboards. So that's going to be a big part of this feature. It's going to feel like competitive PvE in a sense. So we want to be able to do things like, when you open your character sheet, you'll be able to see your best times for any given dungeon. You'll be able to see what the rewards are for the different dungeons if you complete them in gold, silver, or bronze times. You'll also be able to compare yourself to your guildmates and other people on your realm. So you'll be able to pop open a UI and see, what are the top times for people on this realm for this dungeon. Get yourself on that leaderboard. Show people what a badass you really are. And so that sums it up for challenge modes. With that, we are going to hand it over to Corey to talk about the pet battle system.
All right, I'm super hyped to talk to you guys about this feature because I think pets are something that pretty much everyone that plays World of Warcraft probably has a pet in some way, shape, or form. I don't think not necessarily everyone is a collector and has all the achievements, but it's definitely something that I think everyone knows what it is, and it's a feature we definitely felt like we could expand upon and offer some new gameplay. Whoa. There we go. So what exactly are we doing here? Essentially, you're going to be able to collect, you're going to level, and you're going to fight with your pets. So we're going to go through all of these in a little bit more detail. But first, some key elements. First of all, it's accessible to everyone. We didn't want it to be a feature that was locked to the max level that only a few people would get access to. We wanted it something to be that everyone could do. So you'll be able to start this at a really low level and start collecting pets, leveling them up, and building your team. Another thing is it's going to work with almost every pet in the game right now, as well as a ton of new pets that we're going to be adding for the system for you to collect. So for all you people already out there that already have, say you've got 100 pets, most likely almost all of those pets are going to work with the system right when you get it. Now granted, you're going to have to level them on your own, but they'll still be able to work with the system. It's also going to be a lot of customization, things like being able to name your pets, things like being able to have different ones, giving them individual abilities. We'll get into that more in a little bit. So as far as collection goes, how does that work? Like I said, it's going to work with your existing pets. So a lot of people are going to start the system and already have a pet to start with and get it going. There's another type of pet you're going to be able to get that we're introducing new for Mists of Pandaria, and this is going to be called a wild pet. And the way wild pets work is you're going to find them out in the world. Essentially, when you find them, you're going to be able to engage in battle with them and fight with them using a pet that you already have. And then you're going to be able to get that pet and add him to your collection. Now, what's cool about these wild pets is that they have random varying stats. So you're not necessarily going to just go out and be able to get all the wild pets you want, within that first week, because they're going to have varying stats. So you might want a pet that's really good at, say, tanking, or a pet that maybe has like a CC ability. So you're going to keep wanting to collect these pets until you find that one that has the right set of stats. Then you can start leveling it up. That they have random varying stats. So you're not necessarily going to just go out and be able to get all the wild pets you want, within that first week, because they're going to have varying stats. So you might want a pet that's really good at, say, tanking, or a pet that maybe has like a CC ability. So you're going to keep wanting to collect these pets until you find that one that has the right set of stats. Then you can start leveling it up. The other thing about the wild pets that's pretty cool is that they have unique spawning abilities. So, for example, certain wild pets you might only find during a certain season, like winter. Certain pets you might only find when it's raining, for example. Certain pets might only spawn during the day or the night. So there could be a pet that only shows up during the spring, while it's raining, in Elwynn Forest at night. Now, they're not all going to be like that, obviously, but we definitely want to mix it up so that people have a lot of pets to collect over a long period of time. We don't want you to just go out right away and get all of them. We want it to be a system that lasts. Now, how are you going to find these pets? We're going to change the pet interface we have now and introduce something called the Pet Journal. What the Pet Journal is going to do is let you manage all your existing pets you have, as well as the teams and the battling and everything that goes along with the new system. We've got a few UI shots that we'll show you that give you a little bit more of a rundown about how the journal works. The other thing along with this is that most pets are going to become tradable. So what this means is you're going to be able to, say, get the Whippletinger from an event, like the Brewfest event, and then be able to take it and, say, level it up to a certain level, maybe teach it some abilities. Then you can go and take that pet and throw it on the auction house, and someone else could get it. And based on the amount of time and work you put into it, obviously it's going to sell for what people think that's worth. So we really wanted the system to feel like something that you could trade pets, not only in the auction house, but with your buddies and your friends, your guildies, other players. This is a huge one. We're really working hard to have this, is to have account-wide pets. Meaning that obviously if you have a set of pets on one character, you log in another character, you'd be able to use those same pets. If you got a pet up to level 14, you log in another character, that pet's still level 14 and you have it. You don't have to do it again multiple times for all the pets. So here's a look at the pet journal. Just like the mock-ups that Tom showed you earlier, these are all mock-ups of how we think the UI would work from our UI team. So over there on the left, you've got your list of pets. You can search and filter through to find the ones you want. And then over on the right, you can see that pet's stats. And then at the bottom, you can see the abilities that they've unlocked. We're looking at unlocking something like 6 abilities over 25 levels. And then on the right, there's an interesting spot called location. And if you click that, you're actually going to be able to find out where can you get this pet in the world. So instead of having to alt-tab out of the game, go to the web and go to a database site and try to find out, well, where can I find this guy? Where does he spawn? Where do I get him? Similar to what we did with the Dungeon Journal, where you could see all the items and find out what bosses drop them. You're going to be able to find out where to get all your pets